Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs, welcome to the Beacon TVL show, the weekly podcast from Beacon DeFi, your beacon in the world of decentralized finance. I'm your host, Professor Chris, the DeFi professor, and we've got a great show lined up for you as we tackle the news of the week that's relevant to you, our dear users, in the world of on-chain investing. Today on the show, we've got one of the most amazing panels I could have put together for the end of the year. So starting with to my direct right from the great smart contract platform, Drosera, a grand rising to one of our favorite panelists. Welcome back to Jirachi. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. Grand rising to you too. Thank you. I
Thank you, sir.
appreciate it.
And to his right, from the great CEX of the Canadian Pacific Northwest, Netcoins, one of the most intelligent people I've met here on the podcast. We have Mike Kitt back on the podcast. Welcome, sir. How have you been?
I've been fantastic. Thanks for having me back.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, guys. Let me just grab one link because we are live. So we're using a little bit of a new platform here moving forward, guys, just kind of changing things around. Really excited to use Ecamm Live moving forward. There's some things that, of course, that are going to be a little bit different than our last vendor, which is StreamYard, but excited to hopefully show you kind of how this is going to look moving forward, because we'll have a little bit more creative control, some new things that we can kind of put in, some new widgets and things to play with, and really just better quality, because I can stream this, and I think I am. Nope, I'm at 1080p today. But I can stream in 4K if I really wanted to. And I get to control it all here from the desk. So that's probably the one thing that's the coolest part. Ecamm has really just kind of risen to really meet that need, at least for me. So really happy to kind of move forward in this way. Gentlemen, we're in a really interesting crossroads. And what I mean by that is that we're in a situation where the market is just, I mean, do I dare say the market's being manipulated? And the thing about the market is that we're in a situation where, 2 days ago, BlackRock decided to sell quite a bit of BTC and ETH, and then everyone coordinated to buy a little bit today. So this could be just part of the idea of paper hands shaking things out, right? So I guess we'll start with you, Mike. Your thoughts on the last, because it's been a little bit since you've been on the show. So your thoughts on the last quarter, specifically in Q4. How do you see the rest of this market shaping up, at least for the rest of the year? Are we going to get a Santa rally, or is this kind of where we're at?
I've been sharing the Hopia memes a lot recently. Personally, I feel like it's just an early crypto Christmas. I don't feel a lot of energy happening right now. Um, but that doesn't mean that something still can't happen. Bitcoin and crypto in general always does the opposite of what you think. So you never know. We might see some interesting price action happen here.
What about you, Jirachi?
Man, I've been drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit myself too recently, trying to restore some hopium, trying to, but I gotta say I agree. I don't feel like the excitement in the market is there right now, and especially as we like wind down and we get closer and closer towards the holidays. Normally you kind of start to see a little bit more activity, and I just don't feel like I have. So I personally I'm not super excited right now. I don't think I think we're where we're gonna be.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same route. I mean, I think until like some bigger catalysts happen, we don't have a market structure bill coming, probably until January. So I think that's kind of cut things off at the knees. Plus, Bank of Japan, something I've talked about quite a few times, they've signaled that they're going to be raising up to 75 basis points, which is going to have an interesting butterfly effect across the rest of risk markets everywhere. So, um, yeah, buckle in, guys. We're going to have an interesting rest of the year. Looking at bubbles, overall, I don't know much about Leo, but they're not. Canton Network, though, up 5% is a very interesting thing today, because that's an institutional blockchain where a lot of regular everyday Web 2 and fintech type of people are looking to do their version of blockchain investing through Canton. So uh, Morpho up 5.1%. We do have the looming rise here of Coinbase having their big event. Let me go and make this a little bit bigger. So, but Coinbase going live today at 4 p.m. Well, 4 p.m. my time, so 5 p.m. Eastern, to talk about what they've been looking to do for the past. Well, what they're the product show is basically what it is. It's going to be pretty big. It was leaked by someone, I think 6 weeks ago, on what's going to happen. But I do have an idea what I think they're going to talk about today. So, and I don't have the right links up here for half of it. So I'll just kind of talk about what I think that's going to be moving forward. So, uh, the one big thing from the slides are two things. Prediction markets are going to be coming to Coinbase. That's not shocking at all based on what's going on. We talked about this before we went on air, Mike, about how prediction markets have become kind of the large meta. Tokenized stocks, that's not going to be shocking either because Kraken is doing it. They bought backed finance to do that, to bring that on chain. Uh, that's not going to be very shocking either, to be honest, because I think that's kind of the way that things are going to be working, especially with Brian Armstrong going to Congress to really just go on the stump about this market structure bill. Him being involved with policy, tokenization, bringing things on chain, you know, plowing the road per se to make that easier for those to happen. Not shocking. So the other things I'm gonna talk about before I get thoughts is specifically what else I think is happening. I think the base app is going to come out of beta. Uh, they've had nearly 1 million people on the wait list just kind of chilling there, and I think they're just going to get in, which could be interesting for a lot of creator capital markets moving forward, at least to the end of the year. They bought Deribit earlier this year for derivatives. I think we're going to find out more about how that's going to lay out with that $1 billion purchase. They announced last week at Solana Breakpoint. They created a shadow DEX to list every single Solana asset on Coinbase.com and make it available to people in the base app. That I'm still like, what version of the simulation are we in? Because hell has completely frozen over with regards to how this is happening. X402 now has a V2 coming out. That's their agent payment rail. At least that's where they've kind of pushed it for X402 for payments. And then we're definitely going to hear about RWAs, real world assets, and institutional portals. I think that's all going to come together today as part of their showcase. So, Jirachi, we'll start with you. Any thoughts about what you think Coinbase is going to talk about today?
I think that part of that push on tokenized assets is going to be big. I think that's going to be a big one for them in the RWA narrative as a whole. It's very beneficial to them, and both viewing themselves and positioning themselves as institutional anyways. Like I think that's all stuff that they're going to be highly focused on. I had heard a little bit about the predictions markets and like that coming to base, and that being something Coinbase was really interested in general. What I'm super curious to see is if they, take it a direction where it's like, okay, buy markets on Polymarket via Coinbase, buy markets on Kalshi via Coinbase. If those kinds of things like are something that's on the horizons for them, is something I'd be interested to see too.
Yeah, Mike, what do you think about these announcements? Is it shocking? Is it not shocking? Is there anything else that you think they might be announcing today that'll be pretty big to the Coinbase customer base?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's shocking. It makes sense given all the narratives. I think Coinbase is just positioned so well for this moment. It kind of is their moment right now. They're really putting themselves in the center of, the intersection between TradFi and DeFi. So, it's good for them, especially seeing all these bank charters being provided, and the Larry Finks of the world talking about RWAs and bringing everything on chain. So Coinbase is just perfectly positioned for that. I am curious to see if they talk a little bit more about the base chain, and things that are happening on there. That'd be kind of interesting. But other than that, yeah, I don't know what else they would really talk about.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest part too, is just making base a bigger part of the narrative for what they're doing. Because most people, if you're a regular Coinbase customer, you have no idea what base is. Most people don't know that the majority of if you take out a loan on your BTC, uh, half the new coins you're seeing listed, that is all coming from base in some way, whether it's using Moonwell or Morpho for the loans, or if it's using aerodrome for the DEX listings. So this will be interesting to see where they move from here. Uh, I'm curious to see what happens specifically with the banking charters you meant, as you talked about, because I think that's probably the next thing we should probably talk about before we move on to the rest of the information. Either way, it's going to be an interesting show coming from Coinbase because they don't do anything small. I think we've learned that. As one of the biggest CEXs in the world, this is actually probably going to be a very bullish day for them, and I'm excited to see exactly how they're going to talk about it. You mentioned banking charters, so let's talk about this now. Uh, we're in a situation where the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, has now come and approved not one or two, but five different banking license applications from bank charters, and that's normal. But what's really interesting is exactly which five. Those five specifically are BitGo, which is the main custodian of wrapped Bitcoin in the world. They're still the largest market share on wrapped Bitcoin. Uh, that's also going to be Circle, the layer, well, almost to the layer one, or that's behind the layer one arc, but Circle, the big USDC token issuer. Ripple, which is behind RLUSD and XRP. And then we also have Fidelity, is in the asset manager. And then, is it Paxos? Paxos, which already had an in with USDG, their Galaxy Dollar Consortium for USDG through Anchorage, which actually had a 50-state money issuing license back in the Biden administration. So they have their own now. This actually kind of reshapes what it means to be a stablecoin issuer, in my opinion, because now five of the biggest, with the exception of Fidelity, four of the biggest are actually going to be able to just provide full banking services. In fact, PayPal themselves is awaiting. They actually filed a request with the OCC this past week, which I know is kind of weird, but they've been using WebBank and a couple other banks for years to make them money. Now they're going to come in and make their own money, hopefully, through this process. So, Mike, we'll start with you on specifically with these banking things, since you brought it up a little bit ago. How do you think this is going to reshape the way that stable coins are going to be flowing into the system, with you from a CEX lens?
I think it's actually hard to understate how big of a deal this will be. I think we've all been waiting for this moment for many, many years. I think it was the pretty obvious path, and it was just waiting on regulation. Um, Back when FTX was still around, I actually think a huge reason why the market grew so much was at that time you had Silvergate, Signature, and
Silicon Valley Bank.
ooh, SVB, and they
Yeah.
had all their internal settlement networks. And so you could send fiat 24 hours a day, and all the crypto platforms were using that. So the crypto markets could operate 24/7. And so you didn't have that disconnect between TradFi and crypto. And this is going to be fantastic because if they can at least access the FedNow networks, or they can offer their own networks, and then you can get 24/7 on both sides. I think this is going to be huge for crypto. And as it stands, I think banking in the US has definitely opened up a lot more than it has been in the past to be able to get banking access. But that's just still a huge struggle in the industry. It's very restrictive. It's very cost prohibitive. It's hard to operate a crypto business and access TradFi banking rails. So just having it all in one place makes total sense, because probably the hardest thing in the CEX world is getting a bank and then paying for it, maintaining it, doing all the compliance, and then you have to send wires back and forth, which are slow. So if you just remove that bottleneck, I mean, this is going to be rocket fuel for the market. I'm very excited for this. We need this in Canada. We're well overdue.
No, I definitely can understand that. Jirachi, what are your thoughts on this? I know you have some thoughts specifically on the five that just got granted. So,
Yeah, no, I am obviously, like, the more I begin to work on RWAs and the more I begin to kind of shift the focus over to looking into that world and looking at that. I just think the more we can marry the TradFi and, like, our ability to transact with it easily and freely, the better it is for everybody, like both in crypto and, like, for regular consumers too. So I think this is a really big deal. And it also, like, it just continues, like, We could have just had a 2 month time period where some good crypto stuff happened, both from the government's perspective and from everybody else's, and then moved onward. And they still could have said this administration was super pro crypto. Instead, month after month, we see announcement after announcement where the Fed has deliberately taken steps to adopt a pro crypto stance that's good for all of us. So I'm a big fan. I love this. I think this is just a continuation of like the agenda that I like to see. That seems to be sweeping across the federal government in general right now, which is a pro crypto one, and I think that's great for us.
No, I completely agree. I think the one thing we kind of have to balance here is how much of the big guy versus the little guy are we going to see here with regards to distribution, right? Because Robinhood is coming out with their blockchain, it's a layer two blockchain built on top of Ethereum in 2026. We're seeing more of the pilot with Swift because now they have this partnership both with Linea and Ethereum as well as with Chainlink. Seeing more of that start to come around, but from the other side, now we have things, specifically such as with the news that's coming with Visa, and Visa has they are coming out swinging. They're a little late, to be quite honest, because frankly, Mastercard came out with that same information, back in April. I think is when I went to Bitcoin 2025 is when this all came out. Uh, the ability for now the big companies, and to be fair, they've been testing for years with this, but now that they've gotten, as they mentioned, 3.5 billion in annualized run rate, which is large, by the way, across multiple ecosystems. This is not just Ethereum. This is also with Solana. Um, they are now in a position where they've decided they're going to create a global stablecoins advisory practice. This is a bridge now for anyone who wants to come aboard using Visa, using MasterCard to have stablecoin not only settlement, but also the acceptance of stablecoins. The one thing, too, that's interesting about this announcement is they're including 7-day settlement windows for the first time. So to with your point about banking, now we're going to have the ability for settlement any day of the week. Not a little game where you can like, oh, it's Friday, I'll do it late after Friday after business hours. It won't post until Monday. No, this is going to start happening immediately. So we're going to see a lot of quick settlement windows. They have deep liquidity now after all this testing. I think it's to the point where they're going to be happy to really just have all this money moving everywhere. So I'll start uh, with you, Mike, specifically on Visa and MasterCard, now both being out there with the masks off about looking to try and tackle this conglomerate of PayPal, BitGo, Fidelity, Ripple, Circle. They're all going to be kind of butting heads to try and grab market share on both sides. One's coming from the deeper side, we'll just call it that way, with regards to being more DeFi focused. The other is coming with more consumer and global business focus. This will be an interesting way to see how they kind of either work together or against each other moving forward.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I'm curious to see how this plays out specifically with the different stable coins
Right.
and if we're going to see some market fragmentation. We have a PayPal stablecoin, we have USDC, we have Tether. Um, every company, if it has the opportunity, is going to want to release their own stablecoin to earn all the interest on it because the business model is obviously there. And Visa is probably one of the best ones to do that because of their network effect. Um, and that's kind of a weird situation that we actually haven't seen in over 100 years. This was actually pretty common before the Federal Reserve was put in place, was all the different banks had their own dollars, and it created actually a very fragmented market. It was one of the reasons why the Great Depression happened so viciously. And we're sort of seeing that again with stablecoins. And it's kind of an odd situation that we're going to have a bunch of US dollars that might not actually be equivalent. So I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out. But Visa obviously just has a huge network effect. So I think it'll be probably a good thing if they're, settling on Ethereum and Solana, and they're just making these networks way bigger. And I think just having more liquidity in them is going to be very good. And they're also going to probably focus really, like you said, on that customer experience. So how can they make the settlement flow really seamless, both for the merchant and the consumer. And just getting people more used to settling with stable coins is going to be good because then it'll be like a gateway drug. Then they can move back into other things in the DeFi side. So I'm optimistic that it's going to be good.
I like what you said there. It's a little bit like a gateway drug. So, Jirachi, I wanted to highlight two specific things that I think are very interesting here. First, initial banking participants are Cross River Bank and Lead Bank, and they're settling with Visa and USDC over the Solana blockchain, not the Ethereum blockchain. Solana is the first spot where they're doing this. The other part is Visa is a design partner for Arc. They're the layer one blockchain developed by Circle. So now we're going to see some interesting moves here because this part, the Visa design partner for ARC, was not the announcement that I was thinking I was going to be seeing when this came out. So just wanted to get your quick thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, I think I have read and I have seen from some of the different wonderful Dune dashboards that people make that roughly like 95% of RWA trading volume in the past 12 months has happened on Solana. So it has been like an absolutely like astronomical amount of volume that's occurred, like as far as things that are actual real assets that most of these banks are touching at the moment. So part of me slightly understands like the design choice to focus on Solana first and work there and do what they're doing there. That's where a lot of these customers that are going to be these initial users for that network are, that's where they're at right now. I think that there is almost nobody talking about ARC. There's just nobody talking about ARC. And that's very surprising to me because much like a lot of these other options, when I look at some big players building something like that, my head immediately goes to the fact that they've got $1 billion to dump into that ecosystem. Like they have billions to pour into that, to support builders, to support adoption, to support expansion, to support everything that you would kind of want to see. Like you just, even right now, like these huge chains raise these massive rounds. And even with all that money, they can't do it. Why? Because the money's not infinite. You look at Visa, the money's infinite. The money will come forever. They can, anything they choose to build, they can support indefinitely until the sun burns out, basically. So I really do think like looking at stuff like that is a good idea for people who are looking to build or who are looking to make like the next great thing potentially.
No, I agree. I think what's interesting is, as you mentioned, no one's really talking about ARC. Everyone keeps talking about Tempo, which is Stripe's layer one. They're like, do you really need a layer one? And I'm like, you're not going to look at USDC and Circle and say, do you really need a layer one? I mean, because this is actually very interesting because the reason why Tempo exists, in my opinion, is really just to give them a better base for smart contracts that they can control. That's exactly what Circle is doing here. And bringing Visa on chain, I mean, at least at this level to help with the design arc, is going to be very telling to see specifically how ARC works out. Now, as you mentioned, a lot of Solana movement is happening here. So how is that going to work when ARC launches? Canonical bridges that have just been built that people are really upset about between Base and Solana are going to come into play here, I think, because what they've built with Relay and with Chainlink will be a template they can bring now over to ARC. And I think that's kind of what this has been. It's just kind of an appetizer, some dog fooding to see how good is this going to be. Visa already knows how good it's going to be. They're just looking for the right throughput. I think it's probably the better thing to say. And it's funny you mentioned just the Dune dashboards and everything moving over with Solana moving over to mostly, well, not mostly, but there's quite a few Fire Dancer clients out there now. We're going to see more of that. And then also just with some of these new things that they announced at Breakpoint, some new token standards that actually reduce costs and throughput by 200x on the Solana blockchain. That's, I mean, you and I are both developers, Jirachi. That is like, whoa, that's going to be microtransactions, are going to be interesting. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to see how deep this rabbit hole is probably going to go. And I think, Mike, you made the best point there is that this is going to be a lead by example type of movement in 2026. And I think a lot of people are going to be watching from around the world because they think crypto is an interesting idea, but until you get someone like Visa and MasterCard together working in this, I don't think people are going to take it seriously enough until they actually see it in front of them, like on their credit card statements or push notifications from whatever, you know? Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting 2026. I guess the question I'll ask both of you is, at least let's start with you, Mike. Can this all happen with Bitcoin at 85K?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think Bitcoin, I mean it leads the market and it leads the interest, but when you see this amount of development, I think we just have to look at the ship has sailed at this point, especially with what's happening in the US and how important the US dollar is for themselves and trade globally. They're so incentivized to grow stablecoins, and a lot of what we're talking about is not growing DeFi, it's growing the stablecoin markets. So I don't really see this slowing down, especially for the next 2 years while Trump's still in. It's such a top priority for them. And granting these bank charters and everything, unless there's some crazy black swan event, which, knock on wood, I haven't really seen anything other than the treasury companies that's building up something to prevent this from happening. I think we're going to keep trucking along, and it might somewhat be a good thing that there's not a whole bunch of hype, because then it just removes some of the fundamentals of building things that actually work, and then you get a meme coin craze, which doesn't really accomplish a whole lot, honestly. It's fun, but it's,
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Jirachi? Are we gonna see a meme coin resurgence on Arc blockchain in 2026? I'm kidding. Don't answer that.
God, I hope not. God, I hope not, man. I think that between, obviously Solana, the Solana Foundation, and everybody who is, even the guys over at Pump Fund and like what they're doing, I think they're working really hard to kind of rebrand themselves away from that narrative. They don't want to be associated with that anymore. They're trying to evolve to the next stage that isn't, being the meme chain. And they see like the potential and they see their ability to do it. They're just plagued by the history, at this point. It's almost a meme in itself. So it's tough to escape your own cross in that way. But I do think they put a lot of good effort into it, and we keep seeing things like this, right? There's a reason that Visa and Circle and everybody in between was like, let's build this on Solana first, and we keep seeing more and more stuff like that. Part of it is, of course, money. There's no question about that. Solana is spending to remediate that image as well, like wherever is possible, from banking partners to otherwise. So I think it's money well spent. I think that they should continue down this pathway for sure. It's definitely a much better long-term play than hoping that we have another meme season.
Yeah, I wanted to get your thought on what Mike said too about it not necessarily being a DeFi thing, but more of a stable coin thing. Uh, I think that what's really interesting, and I'll show this specific article from Cointelegraph, at least the tweet for it, is the idea that the FDIC is unveiling a framework for banks to issue payment stablecoins under the Genius Act, which frankly aren't too many of them, but outlawing approval requirements for bank subs to enter the digital dollar market. How long do you think this auditioning period is going to happen with banks? Because as Mike said, this could be a huge driver of just volume in the first half of 2026 if you can get the right banks. HSBC comes to mind first, to try and get more people to start using stablecoins for settlement.
I think that what we'll see is banks using them locally and natively as much as they are like allowing their consumers to use them. Like interbank transactions, especially as it relates to digital money, could certainly happen quicker, faster, easier, and more smoothly
Yep.
using something like this than using lots of what they've got set up right now. So I do think like if we could see even one huge player, someone who is really big, really look at it and say, let's adopt this, issue this, and make this something that's going to be in consumers' hands and makes it so people can use it, they'll see a boom. Like they're going to see a boom of volume come to them. Part of the question is just like, what method did they take to monetize it? They have so many different ways like that they can go about it, just from, regular like interest yield bearing ways, transaction fees, however it might be that they let it play out. But ultimately, as soon as you can use stablecoins the same way from your Chase Bank app that you can, your Zelle, people are going to like when they have the option to, especially if it allows them to go cross border easier. It's definitely an advantage as well, for sure.
Yeah, Mike, and I think you brought it up, and we'll talk about this last thing before we move on. But uh, I think the interbank part is probably the most bullish part about this, right? The ability to, for me, because me, the biggest pain point is if I send money to myself from one bank to another, that's 3 business days. If they can knock that down into 30 minutes or something like that, that changes everything, in my opinion. That's the one pain point I think, even for especially for international customers. I mean, that's way better than a wire. They're probably going to charge for this for sure. Because why wouldn't they, right? Because they're always going to try and make money one way or another off of this. Because that's the one thing they probably can't do. Well, I guess if they charge, through Swift, since that'll come in that way. Anyway, just kind of wanted to get your closing thoughts on that, specifically on how blockchain can actually just, lessen that gap with regards to money just kind of hanging out there, when we all know it's literally just debit here, credit here. It's just things talking to each other. It's just more a matter of how quickly do they feel like they want to settle those funds.
Yeah, it's pretty revolutionary for banking. The real growth in stablecoins has been B2B payments. I did a presentation pretty recently about this, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was, 40-50% of stablecoin volume was B2B and generally international. It's just so much easier. And if you can just go to someone and you can say, okay, do you send wires frequently or do you have to send large values of money? It's everything is painful about it. It's very slow. You have no visibility. It's generally expensive and it's hard to do because you a lot of times have to go into a branch or you get a lot of compliance questions. So stablecoins solves almost every single piece. The compliance part really doesn't change because the banks have to do that, but you get full visibility on the transaction, it happens very quickly, and if it's on chain directly, it's very cheap. So a lot of fiat-based businesses that are sending international wires or they're doing B2B transfers or they have their business globally, stablecoins are an absolute no-brainer. So just the value add there and how much quicker capital can flow globally and it can move 24/7 is going to be I think it's just going to be a huge unlock globally for just business in general because all that time delay of money not reaching the right place at the right time is quite slow. Even for places like the FX markets, a lot of companies operate on very small margins and they only have so much capital. And so if you're waiting to pay bills or you have like debt outstanding and you have to wait 2 to 3 days, there's people that go out of business because of that wait. And if they can settle immediately, you can actually do a lot more. So I think it's gonna totally upheave like a lot of financial industries. It's really really positive. I think.
No, I completely agree. I'm gonna take a little bit of a fun kind of transition here for specifically for Jirachi, but uh, we're talking about changing markets, right? And I think that the other thing that came out this week, it's been announced, but now that it's finally live, is the fact that Bitcoin now supports MetaMask, something that frankly Phantom has done for a while. So this is nothing new, but the fact that you can do it through MetaMask, not through a Snap anymore, which means Rabby will also be doing this fairly soon, is probably good. Uh, but I want to ask you, Jirachi, will it save ordinals and runes to have
It will
MetaMask and
not
Bitcoin?
save neither ordinals or runes. It will
Ah,
save neither. Unfortunately, I wish I could say otherwise, but I do not believe so. Now, I think when we last talked about this before, this is what I do foresee. I foresee every like 9 to 18 months there being like a random boom where for like a week they just like pop off and everybody's in love with them, or for 2 months or something like that. But I really don't think we're going to see a whole lot more than that. It's not what it's built for. Bitcoin's a store of value. Please let us. We have chains for this. These things.
I'm seeing a lot of just like a lot of doom and death vibes on Ordinals and Runes. They didn't mention Alkanes, but they're not far behind. Uh, Obviously, the fact that it's finally coming to Menas is probably good. Uh, it's all just a matter of are people going to come back and start going into Ordinals and Runes in this kind of market? I don't know. I think you're right. I think we'll see what the next boom is going to be. Um, Man, I really haven't heard from a lot of Ordinals and Runes people in the last couple of months. Huh.
I haven't since like July.
Yeah.
July, it was a good time.
July
Yeah, it
was
was fun
fantastic.
then.
You're
Maybe,
right.
yeah.
You're right. You're right. That was good. We'll we'll segue into this. And again, thanks for Jirachi and Mike for being here with us today. The mothership here, school.com/beacon. It's our free group. In fact, I even have sound effects now. Oh, I have a soundboard that's over for all of you. No, I'm kidding. But the fact that if you're hearing, if you like what you see, you're getting great value out of this. Please definitely consider joining our free group. It's available at school.com/beacon. Uh, Check out the Start Here post, which is down here. You'll get a message from myself and our CEO Andrew. You'll hear more about our different paths that we have, and we've got a lot of really great content that's out there. We just reran our Black Friday special last Saturday. Will we run it again before the end of the year? Don't know, maybe. But if you like what you hear, you want to get in, start having your crypto and your digital assets working for you. Learn more about stablecoins, even just like Mike was and Jirachi have been talking about. Check us out, school.com/beacon. Absolutely free to join. And if you want more time, like personal mentorship from me and access to our Discord and all that stuff, we do have offerings for all of that. So check us out, school.com/beacon from Beacon DeFi. Your beacon in the world of decentralized finance. Let me go ahead and hide that. I need an easier way to hide. Telling you, this production thing, I'm still just kind of getting in here with Ecamm, but I'm really pleased with what we have so far. Um, what I wanted to talk about, guys, is now that we're here. So this is the last live episode with a panel for 2025 for our podcast. I want to thank everybody who's been on panel from all the different projects. Robert from Talisman, Ken and Luke from Taushi. We've had Taco, the great Player One Taco, on here. We've had multiple creators like Lito Hilario. We had multiple people from all across the world, such as Deb from Escrows. Was it Escrows? From Latin America. I apologize. I don't have the actual website that you have there, but we've had a lot of great people come on the show from multiple things. So thank you guys so much. I will be doing some sort of episode in 2 weeks, specifically on just looking back on 2025. And maybe we'll have some special guests on for that to kind of talk about it, because it's been a very interesting year. So we're not actually having this call next week because of Christmas and traveling, and so we'll have it the week after in some form. Well, it's more of like just a look back on the year. And when I think about how crazy this year has been, gentlemen, we started off with a new U.S. president. We're in a post-halving year for Bitcoin. We just ended the year now with the first ever halving for BitTensor. That's an interesting event. And now we've walked into a perpdex prediction market and privacy meta, along with crypto AI and AI agents. We kind of started the year with AI agents, and then the Trump launch, along with the Melania $5 wrench attack, kind of sent everything into Goblin Town at that point, right? February and March were very sad. But time has passed. Wounds have healed. And now we're looking into a spot now with the Genius Act being passed. We're seeing digital asset treasury companies, almost nearly 100 that have been formed this year to go for specific types of digital assets as a main treasury idea. The rise of things like pipes and SPACs to get people and money bootstrapped into these digital asset treasury companies, and then the impending macroeconomic cycle of geopolitical events that caused a trade war, which caused a whole bunch of things to be set into motion. And now we're staring down the barrel of a Japanese rate hike and them selling T-bills. So, well, what a year it's been. So I wanted to start with both of you and just kind of get an idea for, in your opinion, and we'll start with you, Jirachi, what do you think 2026 is going to bring and why people should be, what they should be looking forward to? Don't have to be bearish or bullish, but what are you looking forward to specifically for 2026?
I think it's going to be the year that we finally get a wave of new applications that people in crypto are excited about using and will actually have something to do something with. I think the past few years in particular have been very, very heavy on build the thing. It doesn't matter how much it was raised. It doesn't really matter if it's like going to turn a profit or not. We're just going to keep building like stuff, basically. I think the infra wave has passed. I think it's come and it's gone. So I think we're now at a phase where the people are desperate for use, the people are desperate for applications, and I think that that will be what much of venture capital turns their attention to in this coming year too. So there's a good chance that's a lot of what we'll see come onto the market. And it's something to be excited about because we really need to have more uses for crypto. Like this is actually creating some instead of just creating infra and rails and the million things that have just kind of been cropping up the past few years.
What about you, Mike? What do you think we should be looking forward to?
Yeah, I think openness and usability will continue to be the theme. I think we'll see lots of really strong businesses that have good UI, UX, good user bases, and they now have the green light to act with crypto, with Bitcoin. They have the banking support, they have government support, they have regulatory support. Now they're going to go, okay, how can we just integrate this into anything that we do? And how do we make this a really great experience? I've really liked watching Square and what they've done with the Lightning Network. And they're basically re-architecting their whole payment system to be working with Bitcoin and to make it really, really easy for people to use it. Being able to receive whatever currency you want, to send whatever currency you want. It's easy to read, it's quick, it's simple, and rolling it out at scale. I think that's what crypto's always needed. It's been very technical, it's very hard. So just seeing more of that, I think is just we're going to need more of that for a long time, and it feels like now's the time that it's finally going to happen, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there are two things that are going to be solved. And I know you mentioned infrastructure, Jirachi. I think that there's going to be more intra-chain infrastructure deployed over the next 6 to 12 months. That's going to make a bigger difference with distribution. And I think with stable coins probably going to be, we've always said it's the killer app of crypto, but probably we're going to see stable coins broach 1 trillion in market cap. I think in the first half of 2026. I think that's a given with these new bank charters coming out. PayPal's really doing their due diligence to try and to make PYUSD a thing. Uh, I think it's going to be kind of crazy to see exactly what happens, Gretchen, with with PYUSD because they're making it a thing. The fact that YouTube has signed the deal to have creator fees paid in PYUSD. I don't have this on the agenda. That's interesting. Uh, and when you think about how PayPal first came into the market 3 years ago, and they were just floundering on ETH mainnet, and then they go to Solana, and now they're in billions of actual tokens in supply. Uh, we're seeing some new changes, and I think the way that people will live and accept stablecoins, or at least accept digital assets, is going to be very interesting. I think we're finally going to see that wallet meta that I talked about 2 years ago, where wallets are going to be at the forefront defining what the user infrastructure is going to be, so that Uber drivers and street performance will have better things to offer people to talk about besides Pi Network and XRP. Don't come at me, but we're in a situation where it's going to be definitely more accepted to have digital assets in our lives. I've made the joke the past couple of years that we've always wanted to put out a how to deal with talking about crypto at the holiday dinner table PDF, and I didn't do it this year because frankly I didn't think it was necessary, and I don't think it's going to be necessary moving forward. One thing I did want to share that I thought was interesting, just kind of talking about this, and I think we're going to see more of this. So the Marshall Islands, which I believe is a U.S. territory, becomes the first country to distribute UBI, which is Universal Basic Income, on chain through Stellar. Go Stellar! With USDM1 sovereign bonds. I'm guessing I don't know if that's something for Marshall Islands, or I don't think this is Mountain, which is RWAT bills. I think this is something completely different. I think this is a very interesting way to really bring some blockchain infrastructure into the daily lives of regular people. They'll probably have a wallet and an app to show people at the Marshall Islands exactly how they can access their money and how they can pay for goods using USDM1. So in a way, it's kind of like having your own pop-up city, I guess. Jirachi, what are your thoughts specifically on this interesting development? I'm very surprised that frankly more countries aren't doing this yet, but maybe they will in 2026.
I think this is a great first step. Like you need a pilot anywhere, right? Like someone has to prove it. There's got to be a first somewhere. I think this is a great way to do it because at the end of the day, like instead of it being across 100 million people and it's like the money they depend on to stay alive, this is more like just this additional like a ubi. It's more like the help. It's to supplement like with what they've got going on right now, especially with the Marshall Islands being what they are. So I love it. I think it's cool. I think it's a good idea. I also think it lends more and more to the network state thesis, which I'm always a big fan of. I'm a huge proponent of it myself,
Yep,
so
same.
big fan.
Mike, what do you think about this? I mean, this is all about creating blockchain economies across the world in small areas. Yeah, I think this is a very interesting pilot. I hope that there are more countries doing this. Bhutan just talked about how they're going to spend almost most of their 10,000 BTC that they hold to create a mindfulness economy powered by Bitcoin in the country of Bhutan. So, I mean, we're seeing things pop up around the world. This is kind of playing into what you mentioned earlier about going away from what would be a CBDC through a central bank, through all of these multiple entities creating their own currencies to help out their people.
Yeah, lots to potentially comment on there. I mean, yeah, it's interesting that they're doing it on such a small pilot. I didn't know much about the Marshall Islands. There's about 37,000 people there, so
Hmm.
definitely interesting place to check out. I think, especially with an integration like Stellar and MoneyGram, I believe, work really closely together. So a lot of these countries that do a lot of remittance, it makes sense why they would choose these types of change. Because if they're losing a lot of money on those international transfer fees, I remember when El Salvador first started experimenting with this, I think something like 15 or 20% of their entire GDP was just going to Western Union. Like it's just obscene to even imagine that that's possible. So just cutting down that one fee, if you can unlock 10, 20% of your economy, that's pretty significant. So just those cost savings alone can really impact a country. And I don't know, I think it's pretty inspiring when some of these places have an opportunity to get on chain, connect, and earn income in new ways. I think that's probably the most exciting part about all this. That's why I think El Salvador has been just such an inspiring story this whole time. This does really remind me of that. Just seeing people get on chain and get I think it was the Chivo wallet and get some Bitcoin distributed to them, and
Right.
just like I said before, it's just another gateway drug to get people using these tools.
Well, gentlemen, it's been a great show. I'm gonna end by just kind of saying if there's like a fun 2026 thing that you're gonna see in the first half, that's somewhat blockchain related. What do you think that's gonna be? I'll start with you, Jirachi. Without mentioning the
It's
the unfortunate sperm racing experiment that's going
now that was fun.
on.
Man, I one of the crypto things that I've always enjoyed the most that's a non-crypto thing that I think they'll start pretty strong with early this next year based off a couple good conversations I have is man, I love the crypto fight night. I got to give a shout out to my guys over there. Crypto Fight Night, they always put on a good event. It's always a lot of fun. There's always a bunch of stuff. They always bring in good personalities, good people from Twitter, usually people who I know, so it's always a good time. But I know early next year they'll put on some good stuff. So I'm excited for it. It'll be fun.
Crypto Fight Night. I like that. Shout out to most of the people that are on there. Shout out to the blonde broker. She's a badass, and she's killing it every single time. I always look forward to seeing her when they have a fight going on. So shout out to her.
A warrior, for real.
Exactly. Yeah, you do it, Aaron. You're doing a great job. Um, what about you, Mike? What do you think is going to be a fun 2026 thing that hopefully does happen and will be something that warms your heart if you see it happen?
I hope we see a new country just really full on adopt a Bitcoin or crypto strategy. We haven't really seen a new one come up of scale. It always surprised me that we had a lot of really small places like El Salvador, and then the US just came in and went 110% in. I hope we see some other places really come out of the woodwork and have a really cohesive strategy like the US has right now. I think that would be very exciting.
Yeah, I think, and I love that idea. I think for me, it comes down more to products. So, one of the things I'm most bullish about, frankly, is HIP 3 with Hyperliquid, the ability for anyone who wants to put up the money to create their own perpetual DEX on anything that they want to using Hyperliquid Core as the infrastructure. Uh, I've seen the idea that Pokemon cards are coming to a perp dex on Hyperliquid. I would love to see some more interesting ideas like that. Like one of my favorite things that's blockchain related is, and I think this is still a thing in Indonesia. They have tokenized the fish market, so the ability to come in and help support actual uh, fishing companies and families who fish there at the market level, I think would be really cool. And as much as I know that creator capital markets are going to be a huge thing, and probably will have some stupid creator capital market perp decks on Hyperliquid, I'm sure at some point. Um, like you said with crypto fight night, I think events like that are going to be interesting. I think we're going to have. Um, I would love to see a really cool virtual summit where everyone that's a huge part of blockchain, whether they're on the CEX or on the DeFi level, come through and just have a way for everyday people to come in and learn more about what they do. That's something that I don't see anyone doing. That's something I think should be done because most people they're gonna see some of the news out there. They're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't think I'll ever use it. This would be a cool way to actually do that. So not saying I'm working on that, but that would be cool if that was a thing. So, with that said, again, thanks, gentlemen, for being here. Thanks for becoming on the last thing. Two of my favorite panelists from the entire year. Love all the things that you guys bring up. Let's start with you, Mike. Where can people come to learn more about you and also about Netcoins?
Yeah, I'm on X, Mike A Kit, and netcoins.com. You can find everything about us there. If you're in the US or Canada, we do, yeah, crypto trading, staking. We have a great OTC desk. Yeah, API access. Yeah, really easy on and off ramp, and all the major tokens and stable coins. So we work with, yeah, individuals, businesses, institutions, pretty much everyone that needs on-chain liquidity and going between fiat and crypto.
Love it. Thanks again for being here, Mike. We'll see you next year, of course.
Thank
Hopefully.
you. Definitely. If I'm invited back.
Of course. Anytime, brother. Anytime. Jirachi, talk to the people.
Man, I think you guys know quite a bit about Drosera, but please, my Twitter is oxjirachi, just like it is on the screen here, and I'll tell you, please keep your eyes peeled this next week or two. I have some pretty big announcements coming. I'm excited to share with everyone. So soon we'll be talking about something new.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Guys, this is the show we do every week, every Wednesday, except for next week, since December of 2021. Uh, this is one of my favorite things to do every week because I get to bring, a lot of people that I consider friends onto the show and just new communities to introduce to you guys to help analyze and look at the news of the week and how it can be applied to you and what you feel like you want to do with your investment thesis when it comes to on-chain investing. So thanks for the support. Please like, follow, subscribe, regardless of what platform you're on. I do want to say a quick shout out to everyone on the retake stream, on the stream on Abstract. Shout out to all you little guys with the little pudgy penguin icons. Love to see that. Den.show and Blaze.stream, brand new spot we're actually going to, as well as Zora. Thanks for taking the time to check us out. And hopefully, if you like what you see, come back, follow, set the notifications. We're here every week to talk about what's great in this world of Web3 crypto, DeFi, and on-chain finance. So with that said, take care, everybody. We'll see you with a new panel sometime next year. '07, beacons up, banks down. Take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.